Welcome back to the Focus Compounding Podcast. How's everybody doing out there? Hope you are doing well and you are having a great day. My name is Andrew Kuhn. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to listen today. Mr. Geoff Gannon, sitting to the right of me, sort of. How are you doing over there across this table?
I'm doing very well, Andrew.
This circle table here in our office.
Mm-hmm.
Doing well?
Yep.
Doing well. That's great. We want to thank everybody for listening to us here today. This is the audio part of our business. Of course, if you are a regular listener, you do know that. If you want to get access to our investing idea website where professional investors and individual investors write about ideas, go to focuscompounding.com. Be sure to sign up using the podcast promo code, which is podcast, and they'll take some money off of the subscription price indefinitely as long as you do stay a member. And it's an ever-growing community, and it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're biased, but we think it's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun for us, yeah. I think it's a lot of fun for members, too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So today, for today's topic, and this was your idea, Geoff, that you came up with.
It was, okay.
It was FinTwit.
All right.
Which is...
That may be how you're getting this podcast. We don't know.
That is very true. What do I call it? The greatest blessing and the biggest curse?
Okay.
No, it's a lot of fun. So, but I think it's FinTwit. We think of it as a community, the finance community.
Okay. Online.
Yeah. Right. It could be, sure. I mean, it comes from financial Twitter, obviously, but I think it's online in general and just different types of things. And we could sort of talk about different resources that we use online.
Okay.
But as where it comes from Twitter, do you use Twitter a lot?
I do. That's how I send out all of my
But
links.
for like personal stuff, like looking for stuff or what?
I do follow people on Twitter, and Twitter honestly has replaced blogging to a significant extent.
And that's what I think about it. I think a lot of like what I retweet or tweet out, a lot of times it's for myself. Okay. I think of it like a personal blog.
Yes,
in a way.
Yes, and a lot of and so I started blogging in 2005. Okay. And things were different then, and blogs were different. And blogs were different because they had a lot of the things that people do on Twitter, links to things. Here's an interesting thing you should read. Here's my thoughts on this interesting thing I read. That kind of stuff were what people put on their blogs. Yeah. And now that's on Twitter, right? Yeah. That's a lot of what you see on Twitter. There's other things you see too, but that's part of it. And so I think it's replaced a lot of it. And some of the people I know who once wrote good blogs are now very serious
tweeters,
tweeters, but not serious bloggers at all.
Are there industries so popular on Twitter, do you think, or is this just like the finance crew?
I don't know.
There's a lot.
I think it's because of the newsiness of finance stuff. That something's always happening.
Yeah,
I do. I mean, I think there's political stuff and things like that that are constantly happening with things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's true. Because there's something for people to send out there. Yeah.
Yeah. What's one of your favorite top followers you think people should follow other than me? Than me, I'll let you keep that off the list. Other than me.
That's a really good question. I have to leave you off the list.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was kind of kidding because I knew I wouldn't be on there.
You wouldn't be on there? I follow you.
Yeah, you do follow me, right?
Yeah.
For a long time, you weren't. We were partners in a business. You weren't even following me.
That's true. Well, I've had some people that I've had people who I follow, and this has happened more than once actually that I followed, and they said, "Oh, thank you for following me," in an email or something. Thank you for following me, but I feel that I have a lot of content you won't like, and it'll be a distraction for you to follow me.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it said that, which is true. If I don't follow someone, there's some people who are very good that I've stopped following because there's too much content that I don't want. Yeah, I mentioned political stuff, news stuff that's heavy in there. That is not how I use Twitter. But most of the ones that I use are people who are writing a blog that of some kind. There's a lot of stuff I follow that has to do with merger stuff. There's a few things I follow that are not in English because you can just translate, online. So people wonder, like, do I know? No, I don't know any other languages, but I can just translate anything over that way. Several of the people I follow have written stuff for our site too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and there's a lot of people like that post a lot about stocks. I'd say who the majority of the people I follow. But then there's other people too, like Quoth Ragbin. He has a podcast of his own, and I know he's got his own blog or his own brand or whatever. He's always tweeting just about market news, really. Like I feel like that's like the new Wall Street Journal in a way. Yeah. Which is just getting like a bunch of market news. And whenever I want to know about something that's going on, I just go to Twitter and I just see the top news sources, which maybe for better or for worse with fake news or whatever. But that's kind of, but seriously though, it's like the new news source in a way. But no, I think FinTwit really does serve a pretty good place because I've met a lot of people on there.
That's true.
And it's cool because obviously everyone has the same shared interest, which is finance, and we're all tweeting about stocks. And that's how obviously you and I met, was because I came across your Twitter and saw you lived in a town close to myself. And,
because I put the town on there.
Yeah, and I reached out. But there's a lot of do you still like other communities? Do you ever go to like Corner of Burke?
Yes.
I mean that's a pretty good, obviously value oriented community. Value Investors Club.
Value Investors,
people
Corner
pitching
Berkshire,
focus compounding.
Focus compounding. Which all have the same sorts of things, longer form things. I mean, mostly, to be honest, the way that Twitter is useful to me is finding something that links to a bigger piece that someone has written. Yeah. That's very interesting. And so that's the most useful part of it. The parts that are not as useful are that sometimes people are reacting a lot to different things without a lot of depth to what it is.
Sure, and surface knowledge. That
can also be when you talk about message boards of those different kinds, those forums. That's what happens in some of them. Is that sometimes you'll dig through them and there'll be one really interesting write-up that someone had. And then a lot of people reacting to it that don't have a lot of information about it.
Yeah.
But there's some piece there that's really interesting, and so you have to dig through some of that to find the piece that's interesting.
I think it's good also for sharing information, or like sharing links to things or certain material and stuff like that. I think there's a lot to do there. And what's funny is I think FinTwit, I mean, like Carl Icahn uses Twitter, and he'll just post like his letters and stuff like that. It's almost becoming like more of a tool to activism in a weird way.
Sense,
Carisdale Capital, their short sellers, or I think they also own stock, or like go long stocks as well, but they use sort of social media and the public to influence whatever they want. Andrew left at Cintron, so it's almost like it's becoming a new, I guess, vehicle for activists, another tool in the toolkit for them, you know, to sort of push whatever they want.
And certainly headlines and things, that the main idea of whatever you're tweeting out there gets seen by a much larger audience than you would say on a blog or something.
Yeah.
Now the number of people who are clicking that and then reading whatever piece you have, whatever letter you have or whatever, is a much smaller number. But the general gist of whatever idea you have is reaching much bigger numbers than there were in the days of just blogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your favorite websites or other blogs that you follow?
Well, you mentioned them, the forums that were there. I have some blogs that I read a lot, and I think I've linked to them, and people know what they are because I linked to them. So I'd say visit the blog, and you can see who I linked to there.
On your Gannon investing blog?
Yeah. If I react to something that someone has written there, I won't link to something unless I read the blog. There's never been any case where I've written something up because I read something which is in a blog I read all the time. Anything I link to is a blog that I read all the time. Yeah. So I have a small number of blogs that I read all the time, but I read everything that they write.
Yeah.
So
for us, it's been a good platform, I'd say, too, to sort of expand our podcast and focus compounding, obviously, because it reaches more people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that what's great about it is like they're very narrow interests. Like you asked what blogs. I mention all the time Oddball Stocks, Clark Street Value. But you think about those, there's one that I read that's in the UK. They're very specific to that one thing that they do.
Yeah, specialization.
Yeah, and it's usually that. I mean, I could name different things, but it's not going to be of interest to most people because if you don't read all about, say, special situations or UK things or whatever, you have no interest in any of the topics that they're discussing. I'm usually more interested in that than more of a general one, which is much more like what my blog is, which is about more general stuff.
It's kind of like Monish Pabrai when he always talks about why he doesn't have analysts, and he's like, I have hundreds of analysts. He just reads 13Fs by like other great investors who employ other analysts.
And I've said that with like stealing ideas from people.
Have you ever found an idea that came from Twitter that you actually ended up purchasing?
I've certainly stolen ideas from blogs, so it may be that I originally found it on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mentioned that I bought a stock, George Risk. The first time I ever read that up was on The Rational Walk, which we mentioned because we got a question there one time, but does very good book reviews and things like that. I mentioned NACO, Clark Street Value. I believe with George Risk, I'd never heard of the company at all until I read it on The Rational Walk. With NACO, I had heard of the company before. I just didn't remember or didn't know that they were actually going through the spinoff.
Yeah, and it's good because I guess in a way it's like he's putting out what he thinks are the best spinoff situations, and he's obviously a very great investor. So it's almost like when they reach you, they're kind of filtered in a way.
Yeah.
Which for better or for worse,
Yeah. And so it's usually good, it is important to know know a little bit about the person, about who you're reading about. just in terms of what style, what things they like and what things they don't like. Because I've read some blogs where I don't know if I get a lot of ideas from them, but they're really good at analyzing a business.
Yeah.
And so I know that if I read something that they've written, it's going to be interesting business. Mm-hmm. The price may not be what I want at all.
Yeah.
Right. And in other cases, it'll be some sort of special situation, which is really, it may not be the business that I want, but it's going to be obscure. Yeah. You know, it's something that I'm not going to read about in the Wall Street Journal, you know?
Mm-hmm. Do you read the Wall Street Journal?
I do not read the Wall Street Journal anymore.
Have you ever read the Wall Street Journal?
Yes. I used to read the Wall Street Journal, the Financial Times, some other papers too, yeah.
And you just don't anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Because you go
I certainly read.
Or what? More noise than you thought?
I don't know, maybe 6 years ago or so, I tried to cut out almost all news that I could possibly cut out and focus on doing other things.
Do you think that helped you?
Yes,
as an investor?
Yeah, huge.
Why is that?
Because I think it's a lot of time spent on stuff that isn't helpful. I've tried to focus more on information that has a longer shelf life and not spend a lot of time listening to things that are much more shorter term. But I've talked a little bit about that. Even when I read newspaper things, I found after a while that one useful trick was to read all of the week's news at the end of the week instead of at the beginning that way. So you mentioned the Wall Street Journal. On Kindle or something, I can read the Wall Street Journal in like 40 minutes or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you could just spend an afternoon at the end of the week reading it instead of each day. Mm-hmm. And just doing that is huge because it's amazing how 80% of what you read doesn't matter by the end of the week.
Yeah.
You know, it's speculation stuff that's very short term.
Yeah.
And about stuff that's right now. The stuff that's immediate is what gets talked about.
Uh-huh.
And, when you look back at it, I don't know if you've ever done this, like look at, this day in 1980, whatever, or something, but you go back and you look at it and it's turned out not to be very important stuff usually.
Yeah,
that was a big thing and people forget about. As an investor, the newsworthiness of something often isn't that important to us.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
You want to spend more time focusing on things that have more impact over a longer period of time.
Sure.
And also the things that are attractive for news things are things that are either controversial because people have different opinions about it, or controversial because people actually don't know the answer, can't decide right now, which isn't usually useful stuff. What you want to know is something that's clear and longer lasting. So, I've cut news out. I don't know. How about you? You're mostly...
I used to read the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
And then I kind of stopped as well.
Mm-hmm.
And...
do you find Barron's useful? Have you read Barron's a lot?
Yeah, I would read Barron's just for fun, really.
Okay.
It was more of a hobby than like actually finding stuff out of it.
Yeah.
On Saturdays I would read that, but I used to read the Wall Street Journal a lot more than I do. I haven't read it in probably a couple months, honestly, but because I feel like I get the news elsewhere. Other news, like if it's that important, I'll find out about it. I just rather focus on the businesses that I own and finding new ideas. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I'll read it on my iPad, and like you said, I could read it and just kind of flip through it relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But when I do scroll through Twitter sometimes, maybe more than I like to admit, whatever news that there is, I get it, strictly from there or from other places as well.
How much time do you spend on Twitter?
Are you really going to make me ask this?
Do you spend a lot of time on Twitter for things that don't have to do with finance stuff? Or is it just finance stuff?
No, it's really, it's only, I think I follow I went from having my name being Focus Compounding to my personal name.
Okay.
But I don't even follow, I think I may follow a couple friends. It's all my virtual FinTwit people that I follow.
Right.
But I think I use it more so just because it's relevant to what I like, which is obviously investing, and other people tweeting about stuff that's relative to investing, and of course some noise. But I've been trying to cut back on it, quite honestly, just because
So why have you tried to cut back on it?
Well, I read a book called Living with the Monks, and how turning off it. It's actually a good book by Jesse Itzler. He's one of the Atlanta Hawks basketball team owners.
Okay.
He's married to Sarah Blakely, who she started Spanx, which is for females.
Yeah.
And he was also an entrepreneur. Actually, I believe the company he owned was it wasn't NetJets, but it may have been NetJets. It was a private jet company that ended up selling to Berkshire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, He was one of the founders, but he wrote a book actually called Living with the Monks, how turning off his phone taught him about like being more present. And I'm kind of getting off topic here, but but it was a good book that made me think about, getting off social media and all the noise. And social media is good as a platform, but it's not your life, and you shouldn't, be on it as much as a lot of people are on it.
Yeah, I guess one thing I talk about people a lot is it's very tempting to, with things like Twitter, to have things brought to you instead of going out and finding them and investigating them actively yourself.
Yeah.
And then you form a lot of opinions about it. So when I ask people about what stocks they look at and stuff, what they've really done is they've heard things mentioned on Twitter or something, formed a pretty, so far, superficial opinion about it, and haven't gone and read the 10K or whatever on their own.
Yeah.
It's fine to do that, but then you make a to-do pile of all the stuff you're going to do and go off and do it yourself and then come back to it. You don't want to actually be focused on the things that other people are focusing on.
Yeah, well, you kind of form the bias that it could be theirs too.
Yeah, and you don't want to spend, I mean, just informationally and stuff in terms of the value of it. The more time other people spend thinking about something, the less time you should be spending thinking about that. You should be spending time thinking about the things that other people aren't thinking about that should be thought about.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to think about things that are useless, but you want to think about useful things that are not being thought of by other people.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I would agree with that. Yeah.
So that's it. Yeah. So you have it on your phone? How do you?
I do.
You do? Yeah. Is that the problem?
No, I mean, I just get bored sometimes, but
okay.
But I've been pretty good about it. I said that was my goal in 2018 was kind of cutting out more of screen time or phone time or whatever. Turn off a lot of notifications on my phone so I don't get notifications.
Okay.
Other than like some text messages from certain people, but no, I mean, I just try staying off it. But I think it's a good tool. I really do believe it's a good tool.
Yeah.
But again, it's a tool to use it in moderation because some people just are tweeting at, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of noise that you could get off of there.
Yeah, sure. It is, and there's a lot of things that, I think
it's a blessing and a curse, like I said.
Yeah, the other thing is that there's a certain amount of how much something is retweetable, how much it gets spread around can be how memorable it is, how quotable it is, rather than necessarily how useful it is to you in terms of figuring something out about it. And that's always a risk. But I've said that before, though, with blogging, too. We've talked a little bit about that, the difference between, in an earlier podcast, we said that the difference between stocks that you would research for yourself and stocks that make good write-ups.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Some stocks that aren't that interesting from an investment perspective get a lot of hits.
Yeah.
And some things that you can say on Twitter and stuff, I'm sure, attract a lot of people. And
Well, it's kind of like Tesla right now. Mm-hmm. Not to make anyone mad, but I probably wouldn't invest in Tesla, but it's kind of like a hot topic by a lot of people. So there's a lot of people that tweet about it because of Elon Musk. And what does Elon Musk do? He kind of tweets back to a lot of people and kind of helps create the fire. So it's to you what you're saying. I could totally see that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a good example. You have a personality involved there. It's controversial. You have all those things that make it great from a news perspective, but don't really add to it as an investment sort of thing as a possibility. Yeah. Yeah.
But I do like Twitter as it's like a personal blog, and I really use it for myself.
Yeah.
No one else, obviously. And when I retweet stuff, it's really so I could go back later and look at it. And I like putting down my ideas in Twitter because I could just go look at it in the future.
Yeah, and it's a blog replacement, like I said. For a lot of people, it's something that they can do. You can always do a write-up and tweet out a link to it and stuff like that. I found better success with telling people... I say you should do a blog. They don't want to do that. I say, okay, can you put up on Twitter? Oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And so they'll do a write-up and put the link on Twitter. So it's a stepping stone to that sort of thing. It's, it's a personal investment diary if you want it that way.
Yeah. So Twitter, if you're listening out there and you want to sponsor Focus Compounding, reach out to me at info@focuscompounding.com. No, I'm just kidding. But any other thoughts on the topic?
Nope, that's it.
No. Use it in moderation, right?
I quit it for many years. For not many years, but for some years.
Do you have it on your phone?
No, I've never had Twitter on my phone.
Really? So
not that it would matter that much because half the time I'm not even carrying my phone. But yeah,
that's good. We should strive to be like Geoff. We want to thank everybody for listening to us here today. Of course, it's the Focus Compounding Podcast. If you do want to get access to Geoff's weekly memo that he does send out on Sunday mornings, go to focuscompounding.com and enter in your email. And then on Sunday morning, every week, you will receive a 500-plus word memo from Geoff on an investing principle or topic. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great day. We will see you in the next podcast.